My beloved brothers and sisters, let me tell you something that many people never admit out loud. A woman is only controlled the moment she forgets who she is. People don't overpower you because they're strong. They overpower you because they've convinced you that you're not. And the day you stop believing that lie is the day every form of manipulation collapses. Today, I want to speak to every sister who has been silenced, sidelined, dismissed, or emotionally cornered. Because if you knew the strength Allah placed inside you, you would never accept half love, broken respect, or someone else's dominance over your heart. This message is not about rebellion. It's about reclaiming the dignity Allah already gave you. And once you understand that dignity, no man alive will ever be able to control you again. One of the first places where control begins is in the heart. Not through force, not through shouting, not through physical dominance, but through shaping how a woman sees herself. If she believes her worth depends on people, she becomes easy to manipulate. If she believes her worth comes from Allah, she becomes impossible to break. The reality is simple. The person who defines your worth controls your life. Many women grow up hearing opinions, judgments, comparisons, and expectations from everyone around them, family, culture, society, and sometimes even from well-meaning people who don't understand the damage they're causing. Slowly, without realizing it, a woman starts measuring herself through human eyes instead of divine guidance. And that's where the vulnerability begins. If a woman's sense of worth depends on a man's attention, she will tolerate disrespect just to keep that attention. If her worth depends on being liked, she will silence herself to avoid conflict. If her worth depends on praise, she will constantly perform, pretending to be someone she's not, just to keep people impressed. And once someone realizes that she needs their approval to feel valuable, control becomes effortless. But the moment she shifts her internal foundation, the moment she firmly anchors her worth in Allah, everything changes. Because when a woman truly understands that her value comes from her Creator, not his creation, she sees through the games instantly. Compliments no longer blind her. Criticism no longer breaks her. Rejection no longer defines her. And attention no longer buys her silence. When she knows that Allah is the one who honors her, she stops giving people the power to dishonor her. This is why the Quran constantly reminds believers that honor, izzah, belongs to Allah, not society, not culture, not relationships, not wealth, not status, not appearance. Allah says He honored the children of Adam, all of them. That means a woman's worth isn't earned. It's given. It's intrinsic. It's built into her existence. So when a woman forgets this divine honor, she ends up chasing man-made substitutes for it. Compliments, validation, attention, flattery, and every time she chases those things, she puts herself at the mercy of whoever is handing them out. Think about it. If you depend on someone's words to feel seen, you will fear losing them. If you depend on someone's presence to feel valuable, you will cling even when they mistreat you. If you depend on someone's approval to feel confident, you will twist yourself into knots trying to keep them happy. This is how emotional control works. Not through strength, but through dependence. But when a woman understands that her worth is tied to her Creator, not to the creation, she breaks the entire system of manipulation without saying a word. Suddenly, she doesn't beg for love, she chooses love. She doesn't cling to people out of fear. She remains generous while maintaining dignity. She doesn't crumble when someone withdraws affection. She knows that Allah never withdraws His mercy from a sincere heart. A woman who knows her Lord says, I don't need your approval to be valuable. Allah has already honored me. That sentence destroys 90% of the emotional leverage people use to control women. Why? Because you can't intimidate someone who isn't desperate for your validation. You can't guilt someone who isn't trying to impress you. You can't manipulate someone who doesn't fear losing you. You simply lose your power over them. And the beauty is this: when a woman's worth comes from Allah, she doesn't become arrogant, she becomes stable. She doesn't become rebellious, she becomes principled. She doesn't shut people out, she stops letting the wrong people enter too deeply. Her relationships improve because she stops behaving from insecurity and starts behaving from clarity. She loves sincerely, not fearfully. She serves generously, not desperately. She communicates honestly, not anxiously. She walks with confidence, not with emotional dependency. People feel the difference immediately. They can sense when a woman is grounded in something greater than their opinion of her. her. Her presence becomes lighter but stronger, softer but firmer. Impossible to push over, impossible to manipulate. And here's another truth. When a woman takes her worth from Allah, she stops settling for half-hearted treatment. She doesn't accept disrespect disguised as love. She refuses to carry emotional burdens that were never hers to hold. She recognizes red flags early because she isn't blinded by the need to be chosen. She knows she is already chosen by Allah. This mindset transforms not just her relationships but her entire life. It improves her worship because she's not distracted by seeking people's approval. It improves her emotional health because she no longer ties her identity to unstable human reactions. It improves her decisions because she is not acting from desperation. It improves her resilience because she knows that human disappointment does not define her destiny. People can reject you. People can misunderstand you. People can underestimate you. People can walk away from you. But people cannot rewrite what Allah has written for you. And that realization is where a woman's deepest strength begins. A woman who internalizes her worth from Allah becomes unshakable, not loud, not aggressive, not combative, but centered. And centered women cannot be controlled, because once you know who you are with Allah, no one can convince you to be less. One of the most powerful shifts a woman can make, and one of the most misunderstood, is learning to set boundaries without guilt, hesitation, or endless explanation. Many women are conditioned from childhood to be agreeable, accommodating, and pleasant at all costs. They are taught to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, to sacrifice their needs for others, and to make everyone comfortable even if it means making themselves uncomfortable. This creates a dangerous pattern. A woman who is trained to always say yes eventually becomes surrounded by people who expect it, depend on it, and take advantage of it. That's the perfect environment for control to grow. People don't usually control women through strength, they control them through expectations. If someone knows you are too kind to say no, too afraid to disappoint, too patient to resist, too forgiving to hold a line, they will shape your behavior by pushing exactly where you never push back. When a woman has no boundaries, her kindness becomes a tool in other people's hands, her compassion becomes a weight on her neck, and her generosity becomes an open door for those who have no intention of giving back. It's not that she is weak, it's that she never learned that kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. From an Islamic perspective, boundaries are not rude, they are a necessary act of self-respect. Allah did not ask you to please people at the expense of your dignity. The Prophet ﷺ taught us not to burden ourselves beyond our ability and to speak the truth even when it is difficult. Setting boundaries is simply living those teachings with courage. A strong woman recognizes that constantly pleasing people is not compassion, it is surrendering control of your life. She understands that every yes that goes against her values, her well-being, or her sanity is actually a slow form of emotional erosion. The more she gives without limits, the more people take without gratitude. And the moment she tries to reclaim her space, those same people call her changed, selfish, or difficult. But that reaction is not proof that she's wrong. It's proof that they were benefiting from her lack of boundaries. When a woman evolves and begins to set limits, the first people to complain are the ones who were taking advantage. And that alone should tell her she is finally doing something right. A boundary is not a wall. It's not harshness. It's not arrogance. It's not rebellion. A boundary is simply a clear line that says this behavior is acceptable, this behavior is not. And a woman who respects herself enough to define those lines becomes far harder to manipulate, because people cannot guilt trip her into compliance when she has already decided what is healthy and what is harmful. They cannot push her into exhaustion when she refuses to carry responsibilities that are not hers. They cannot use anger, silence, or emotional withdrawal to force her into submission when she understands her worth is not tied to their reaction. She learns to say no without paragraphs of explanation. She learns to say, I can't do that, without fearing backlash. She learns that protecting her energy is not selfish, it is stewardship of the body, the heart, and the mind that Allah entrusted to her. A woman who always feels guilty saying no is a woman who has been conditioned to believe that her value lies in her availability. But a woman who knows her value with Allah understands that her time, her attention, and her emotional capacity are precious resources that must be guarded. The moment she starts setting boundaries, something remarkable happens internally. Peace increases, clarity clarity increases, self-respect increases. Relationships become healthier because she is no longer acting from fear or obligation, but from authenticity and balance. She learns to differentiate between people who truly care and people who simply want access. The former respect her boundaries, the latter resist them. And this is where emotional strength emerges. A strong woman does not apologize for taking care of herself. She does not feel guilty for saying no to harmful behavior. She does not shrink her needs to protect someone else's comfort. She understands that if she doesn't protect her heart, her mind, and her peace, nobody else will. That responsibility belongs to her. When she sets boundaries, she regains control of her life. She stops allowing people to dictate her emotions. She stops carrying the weight of everyone's expectations. She stops living in a state of exhaustion, resentment, and fear. Instead, she moves into a life where her generosity is genuine, her love is intentional, and her relationships are built on mutual respect rather than silent sacrifice. The most misunderstood truth is this: a woman with no boundaries is easier to control, but she is also deeply unhappy. A woman with strong boundaries is harder to control, but she is deeply at peace, and that peace radiates. People sense that she is not desperate, not afraid, not dependent on their reactions. They approach her differently, speak to her differently, and treat her differently because they feel the strength of a woman who respects her own limits. And when people realize they cannot manipulate her through guilt or fear, most of the control they once had simply falls apart. Because the strongest women in the world are not loud or angry. They are calm, clear, and decisive. They know what they accept and what they refuse. They know who deserves access to their heart and who does not. They do not waste their lives being everything for everyone. They live with the dignity Allah granted them. This is what makes a woman uncontrollable. Not aggression, not rebellion, but the quiet, steady, unshakable confidence of someone who sets boundaries without apologizing. One of the most subtle and dangerous forms of control is emotional manipulation. It doesn't shout, it doesn't force, and it doesn't announce itself. It works quietly, slowly, shaping how a woman thinks, reacts, and even how she sees her own reality. Many women fall into this trap because manipulation doesn't look like abuse at first. It looks like concern, disappointment, guilt, affection, withdrawal, or just how he is. But underneath all of it is one goal: to make her behave in ways that benefit someone else at the expense of her own well-being, confidence, and clarity. Emotional manipulation begins when someone discovers that your emotions are accessible and predictable. If they know you hate conflict, they will use conflict to silence you. If they know you fear disappointing them, they will use guilt to steer your behavior. If they know you crave reassurance, they will withhold it until you act the way they want. If they know you doubt yourself, they will subtly deepen those doubts until your confidence becomes too weak to resist their influence. A woman who doesn't understand this pattern ends up trapped in a cycle where her emotions are being used against her. She walks on eggshells, constantly monitoring her tone, her decisions, her expressions, even her thoughts, trying to avoid triggering someone's anger or withdrawal. Slowly, she becomes less of herself and more of what the manipulator wants her to be. But a strong woman, the kind of woman Allah wants her to be, refuses to hand over her emotional steering wheel. She learns to recognize manipulation before it takes root, and she knows that anyone who tries to control her through emotions is not offering love but extracting obedience. Manipulators often rely on guilt because guilt is one of the fastest ways to control a kind-hearted woman. They say things like, after everything I've done for you, you're still doing this? Or, if you cared, you would act differently. Or, you're being ungrateful. These phrases are not sincere reflections of love. They are hooks designed to make her doubt her own intentions. The goal is to keep her constantly apologizing, constantly explaining, constantly proving herself to someone who never intended to treat her fairly in the first place. A strong woman understands that guilt is only valid when she has genuinely done something wrong in the sight of Allah, not when someone else feels inconvenienced or entitled.